Hello everyone, welcome to our monthly live stream. This month we are going to talk about Power BI and SQL integration and how to use these two technologies together to create powerful reports and visualizations for your audience. Before I jump into any further, let me know in the chat if you can hear me loud and clear. While you're coming up with that, I do want to start off by putting an official welcome message on the screen. Welcome everyone to the stream. And yes, Mikkel says, yes, very well. That's all good. That is all I need to know. All right. So as I mentioned, today we are going to look at how to take some SQL data that is in the databases and then bring it into Power BI. This is a little bit tricky to kind of follow along, but if you would like to follow along, I have got a sample data set for you that is available on my website, but you would need to install it and use it with a database that you have in your computer or somewhere else. For the purpose of demonstrations, I will be using MySQL on my computer, and then I'll demonstrate that. So yeah, but if you do want the particular thing, check out the video description for a link to download the data, or I have put that into the chat messages as well, in case you want to grab it from there. All right, the stream is now slowly picking up. We have people from all over the world joining today. You know, I have been up for about 15-20 minutes and I was watching all the comments and messages from others. Let's pop some of these greetings. Marius says greetings from Canada. Hello, Marius. And Vinod says Anna Namaste Anna, which simply means hello brother, I guess. And, hello or namaste to you, Vinod, as well. And Tausif says seems Chandu hasn't slept. I did actually. Whenever I have a live stream, I would have like a patchy sleep because I wake up around 4:15, 4 o'clock to get ready for the stream, which starts at 5. But last night I slept and I actually got up at 4:15. I didn't even wake up in the middle of the night to look at my watch or anything. So I slept all right, but I think I need more sleep. So maybe when I'm done, I'll go back and take another nap. And Anand says, yes, from Gujarat, India. Hello, Anand. And Vijay Vasant says, Ni hao from Shanghai. Hi, Vijay. Ni hao as well. And Saurav says, hello from Nama, Bengaluru. Hello, Saurav. Wow, you know, we have got like people from all over the world. Jam says, good morning from California. Sri Lankan Tamil. Hey Jam, nice to see you there. And Randy is from Philippines. Awesome. So while you all are saying hellos, I thought, you know, we can kind of introduce into the topic with a very small presentation that I have for you. This will basically set the agenda for the next 90 or 60 minutes, however long this takes. And then, you know, we'll jump into Power BI. So let me pull up the presentation here, and that's not where I want you to go. Okay. And yeah, like I mentioned, I got a small presentation. This basically sets the agenda for us today, sets the expectations right, and then kind of helps us go through the whole thing. So the topic for today is using SQL with Power BI. And the agenda is, it's a 4-step agenda. We'll start with a quick introduction to SQL. By no means this is like an SQL class. I do have other videos on the channel if you want to learn SQL, but this is basically kind of setting the ground and introduce you to the data that I will be using in this particular video. So I'll do a quick introduction to SQL with the database that I have on my computer using MySQL, and then we will figure out how to get the SQL data into Power BI through the connections. So data loading and simple queries. And then we will create a simple sales report. You can, once the data is in Power BI, you can use anything, all the advanced ideas and concepts that you are familiar with to build any complex stuff. It all works. But this is just to show you what happens after the data comes to his Power BI. So we'll create a simple report using some measures and visuals. And once that is done, we're going to understand how to make the queries dynamic. So that is, if I want to parameterize my queries and set a variable within Power BI or somewhere else, so that if I change that variable, my queries will update and the whole thing changes. So how do we do all of that? So those are the 4 points, A, B, C, D. Introduction to SQL, how to get the data into Power BI, how to create some report, and then how to make the whole thing dynamic. Sounds good. And then once this is done, during the process, if you have got any questions, like, oh, how does this query work, or what if this happens, or any of those kind of things, use the live chat or the comment feature if you're watching it in the recording to put a message with your questions. And if you are asking a question, unlike, you're saying hello from California, please start that with a Q so that I can watch for your questions in the live chat, and then I can address them if possible. Stay on the topic. Again, you can ask anything. I'm not going to answer other questions, but if it is on the topic, and if I happen to either know the answer or we have time to address that, I will certainly help you out with that. And if you have already asked a question and I didn't address it, please do not repeat. It just creates unnecessary clutter in the chat area. So those are the ground rules. I hope that all makes sense, nothing too confusing. And if you would like to support the stream and the channel, you could use either super chat or super thanks. And if you're watching it again on the replay, you can use super thanks to send a support message. Or you don't have to do it if you don't want to. That's all fine. And don't forget, if you're watching this live, give it a like. That way more people will discover this and use it. And this is the data set that we are using. I have a separate article on my website for learning SQL for data analysis, and the same data in that article is what I'm using again. This way, if you have watched some other tutorials from me, it's not too confusing to connect the dots. So you can download the SQL file from that thing there using this particular link that is shown on the screen. So this URL is in the video description. Go there, grab the SQL file if you want to follow along, or if you are watching it in future and you want to follow those steps. Alternatively, whatever you are seeing can be applied with any other SQL database that you have with your disposal. All right, so now that we have set that, let's go and start by doing everything. But before we do that, we do have some rituals and formalities in our live stream. So I have to obey these rituals. So let me know what are you drinking. I just made myself a nice cup of coffee. And this is going to help me with the live stream and keep my eyes open. What is it that you're having? We already started getting some questions, so I might actually look at some of these, but do let me know meanwhile. Saurav says, question, since Power BI isn't available on Mac, will the steps be relevant to the Power BI service? They should be. The limitation here is you will use a SQL connection that can be reached from service as well. Here I'm just using localhost, which means my computer's SQL. But normally when you have service, you would use a cloud based server or a SQL or MySQL or any other kind of server that can be reached through the service as well. So that is the only difference. It's just tricky for me to simulate all of that, set up a server just so I can demonstrate this. So I haven't bothered with that, but the process is entirely same. And Cian Michael says, how do I learn SQL using a machine where I can't install anything? That's a good question. There are some websites where you can type SQL query and then the browser will run everything for you and show the answer. Alternatively, you can also use SQL on a database that is installed somewhere on a server and then use the browser as a console to get into your queries. I can't really tell you what these are simply because I don't remember any of them, but there are websites. So if anybody knows such things where our friend can practice SQL without installing stuff, post them in the comments. And Koki says, hello from Croatia, Chandu. I have a job because of your tutorial. So big thanks and carry on with the great work. Wow, this is an awesome thing, Koki. Thank you so much. Thanks for the love and congratulations on your job. All right, let's see what people are drinking. Samir is having black coffee and Ranganath is having water. And Jam is having coffee for you 3 a.m. This is awesome. And Tausif just finished dinner. That's cool. And a lot of people are having hot water. Randy Wall is having hot water. Oh, what's with all this? I'm also having hot water. It just has some coffee mixed in it. And Rob is having toothpaste. All right. I hope it's not a regular thing, Rob. And Monster says, Monther says, why don't you use health data? Everyone is using business data. I love to use health data. If you have got some good health data sets that are applicable and easy to obtain and not too 700 columns kind of stuff, let me know. Give me a sample data, or if you work in health yourself and you can part with some dummy data for me to explore and share stories of how to use this on the channel, send it to me or point me in the direction. M3 says, can we use SSMS instead of MySQL? Yes, you can. Absolutely. You can use any kind of database. The SQL file that I am providing as a sample data set is just a SQL file. It can be used and installed on any kind of database. I suppose it works on anything. I have not personally tested it on others, but I have people telling me that they have used it in others. And if you have got your own databases, you can use the concepts on those as well. And especially if you're using any SQL Server ones, unlike a MySQL or something, Power BI integration works even better because Power BI and SQL Server are both from Microsoft. So they play together very well. Whereas MySQL or Oracle or anything else, because they're not part of the Microsoft ecosystem, the integration doesn't feel like very tight. Hope that makes sense. And Graham Bell is having martini. Oh, awesome, man. Cheers to you. All right, let's. There's lots of questions already, but because we haven't even started anything, I don't want to kind of go and talk about all these questions. So we'll get into the topic. We'll show some things, and then I'll hopefully it all makes sense. Um, so let's. I'm gonna use this kind of a mode where my face is there for a while, but I know I'll eventually, once we get into the thick of things, I'll take out my face so that we can look more at the data. So this is my MySQL workbench. This is basically a console to access my database. The database is running on my local host here. That means it's on my own computer. So I'm gonna connect to this, and this is gonna just open up everything, and we can write some queries here. If you have done any other videos on my channel in the recent past, you would have come across the Awesome Chocolates dataset. It's a made-up company that sells chocolates, and the dataset contains of chocolate shipment data along with some dimension information. The dimensions are who our salespeople are, that is one dimension, what countries we ship to, what products we handle. So those are the dimensions. So here is the database structure that you can see on the corner here. Let me just. So these are the tables that we have here. We have got sales, which is the main or the fact table that contains all the shipment information. And then the sales is basically along with these other tables you can kind of explain. So this is my underlying table structure. Now let's do a quick kind of like a 101 of SQL where we'll understand what queries we need to write to access the data. So here is my simple query. I think I'm gonna use a different table just because that way we can actually see all the results. Sales table has 3000 plus rows, so it kind of looks busy. So I'm gonna use select star from geo. It simply means get me all the data from the table that is named geo, right? Right now I'm using Awesome Chocolates database. So you can see that this is actually this guy here is in the bold format, which means it is the database that we are using. In the same MySQL installation, I do have other databases, but none of them are being used. So when I say geo, automatically it will go to the geo table here. But if you want to be more specific, you can mention the full database name dot table name convention as well. Anyhow, when we type this and then run this using the execute command here, it's gonna, I thought that was the output one. It's gonna execute that and it will tell me that these are the tables that I have in my geography table, geo table. So we have got ID, geography, and then the region. So India, USA, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, UK. Those are the 6 countries to which we ship our chocolate. They categorized into these regions, and this is those are the codes. Now let's see, instead of geo, I want to see all our sales. And whenever you write an SQL query, usually you terminate it with the semicolon, and then again you run it. It'll give you all the data. Now what happens is usually any kind of a console, whether you're using Workbench or SQL Server Management Service or something else, they are primarily used to play with the data. They're not the final places where the data ends up. They are used to usually explore the data. So any query you run, it will not show whole picture. Like if your data has 6 million rows, it won't show all the 6 million rows because there is no value in that. It will run it, and usually it will limit to a number of rows. So here I'm limiting it to 500 rows. Here you can see this limit option there, but you can change this to a different number. I think I'm gonna take out some of these things now, and then I just so this is the simple query. Now let's say I want to look at all our sales that happened that have a certain quality. For example, I want to look at all the sales that are in G4. So select star from sales, and then we can use a where clause where geo ID is equal to G4. Because G4 is a text, you can put that in single quotes or double quotes and then run that. What this will do is it will give you a filtered version of G sales where it's only limited to G4. So you can see that in the geo ID column here, it will always be G4 irrespective of what we are looking at. So this is where we are writing a query. The query is select star from sales and then introduce a clause or a condition through the where geo ID is G4. You can add multiple things here. You can say geo ID is G4 and then you can say amount greater than 5,000. So what that would do is it will take out some of these 427, 2,345. These guys will go off 1155 because they are not more than 5,000. So if I run like this, I'm gonna get all the transactions that all the shipments that are sent to the geography 4 with amount this. Many times when you're writing these kind of queries, you may not know what G4 really stands for. What you do know is if I go back to our original query, select star from geo, G4 stands for New Zealand. So I don't really know what the code is for G4, but I do know that we are currently interested in the New Zealand data, or we are interested in India data. So that is the question that I would have in my mind, not the specifics about is it G4 or is it G7 or P94 like that. Very hard to remember those things. The real questions that you or your audience would be asking are more along the lines of give me all the India data or show me all the shipments that went to New Zealand kind of thing. But within the sales table, we only have G4. We don't have the concept of whether that is India or New Zealand. Whereas what G4 really stands for is held in the geography table or geo table. So this is where we need to use a concept called joins. So the way to think about joins is, imagine you have two tables, sales shipment, sales table here and geo table here, each holding one part of the puzzle. Sales table tells me that I have got G4 here, G1, G2, G4 like that. And geo table tells me G1 stands for India, G2 stands for USA like that. So then we take the geo column on both tables and then join them. This is kind of like doing a lookup in Excel or within Power BI. If you have done data modeling, you connect one column to another. It's the kind of like the same concept. And you can use SQL to do a join as well. So we're going to do a join, and that's where we will conclude our SQL journey because you can talk about SQL for any amount of time. This is, as I said, it's not meant to be like an SQL session. It's meant to be using SQL with Power BI. So I'll introduce the necessary concepts, but nothing more. Feel free to learn more using either the other videos on the channel or somewhere else, whatever is your favorite way of learning. So we'll go back here and now let's try connecting both of these. So instead of this, what we want to say is we want to write the condition based on the geography that we have in our mind. So we will start by saying select, and now you need to think a little bit better about these queries. So from sales S, so here I'm giving an alias to the table as S, and then here I'm going to say S dot star. That means everything in the table S. So select S dot star from sales S, and then we can say join geo g on g dot geoid is equal to S dot geoid. This kind of looks funny, but you don't need to use these aliases, and you can still write the whole thing. But it is helpful, especially if you have got long table names or whatever, to use a simple alias like this, so that comes up. So now that the tables are merged here, I can write a where condition where g dot geo is equal to Canada. I hope I got this right. Let's try. So we are looking for G3, and it will give you all the G3 data. So here you can see that this is only showing me G3 information. Now that we have merged the tables and looking condition onto Canada. So this is a very simple join where you take two tables and you merge them together to get what we want. All right, let's see if there is any questions. Sham says screen is blurred. Can you please check? I hope it's only blurring to you or for a few people as well. I'm gonna quickly check if my it shouldn't be blurred because I'm not doing anything strange. I'm gonna check here for the stream quality to my YouTube thing. Unfortunately, I can't see anything here that oh, stream health. Yeah, YouTube tells me the stream health is excellent. So it could be something else that you're doing. What I suggest is on YouTube where you're watching, you have got the quality or the gear icon at the bottom of the video. Click on that and make sure you set it to the highest, which is 720p for this. And if you're watching it on like a very giant screen or something, probably it will be blurred anyway. Yeah, but it's not blurred for others, so it's okay. All right, so that's that. And there are some other questions. I think those questions are better addressed once I jump into Power BI, so I'll wait for them. Cool. Yeah, other people are saying there's nothing blurry about that, so this is all good. Let's. I hope that introduction to SQL was kind of enough. This is more than enough for what we are gonna do with our data from a SQL perspective. But if you do want to learn more SQL, feel free to check other videos or follow up more on this, because SQL is a very powerful language that you can use to manipulate data, talk to data, update data, insert data, and all of that. And it kind of becomes a good skill to have. I'm not saying it's an essential skill, but it's a really good skill to have. I happened to learn SQL many years ago, and it has come in handy many times throughout my life. For example, like back in college days, I did a lot of SQL, and at one point in my life, I thought, finally, I'm done with SQL. I don't have to write any more queries. Fast forward 15 years, and again, I'm using SQL. And today, after 5 more years, I'm still using SQL. So It's a good language and it's quite easy to pick up and keep on adding more things to your SQL um, proficiency. All right, let's go into Power BI now. And ooh, I thought I opened Power BI. I opened PowerPoint. So we are now into Power BI. I did actually prepare a sample file, but I think it might be better if we kind of start from scratch and build everything so you can see the whole journey. And I'm going to close out this. Before I do anything, what I want to do is I want to show you what happens the very first time you connect. Because what Power BI does is anytime you connect to a database, and if this is the first time you're connecting, it's going to ask you for login credentials or how to connect to that. And then it's going to store that information so that the next time you go there, it won't even ask you. So because I've already connected to MySQL through my Power BI a few times, it has stored the whole stuff. So it's not going to show you those additional screens. So I'm going to quickly figure out how to clear away those connection settings so that yeah, data source settings and so these ones I'm going to clear these permissions and then we're going to start again and so we'll say get data more and then search for the SQL that you have. You can type SQL here. It will show you all the SQL databases that it can hook up to. My thing is in MySQL, but you could use anything. If you have got something else like Oracle or whatever, you can use those things as well. So search for your database and then connect. I'm going to use MySQL and connect to this. And then this will ask you where is your server, what database you want to hook up to. My server is on localhost. And if you want, you can specify the port number and everything. So it's on 3306. That's usually the default port. But again, about 9 out of 10 times, you will not hook up to a local host. You will hook up to a network server or a cloud server. So whatever it is, you will mention that. And then awesome chocolates is the database. And we can use the advanced options. We are going to come back and use this advanced a little later in the day to parameterize our query. But for now, this is enough. And then I'm going to say, OK. And because this is the first time I'm hooking up to this database, it will ask me how I want to get into this database. Do I want to use my Windows credentials or a username and password for the database? So whatever it is, you can use that. I'm just gonna use my connection and connect to that. And then eventually, once you connect, it's gonna show you what is there in the database. So these are the 4 tables. Notice that it's adding that awesome chocolates dot at the beginning, but the table names are same. It has people, products, sales, and then also geography. So it will show you what it can fetch from that thing. And then if you want, you can select everything. If you have got some sort of actual connection set up in the database with constraints and whatnot, you can use the select related tables. I have not bothered setting up them like that. So if I pick one, it won't pick up the other. So it's easier for me to just hook up everything and then straight away load the data because there is almost no need for you to do any transformations. because the data is coming from a database, it's usually in a clean and nice format. The only thing that you may want to try is try and transform it so that you can take out some columns or whatever. But we are going to do all of that through SQL later. So we are just going to load it, and then this just basically flickers the screen, connects to the data, brings it, and then loads it into Power BI. All right, my tables are all loaded. They all show up here in the corner. And if I go to the model view, Power BI has done a fairly decent job of even connecting the tables and building my star schema. So it has done all these 4 tables are related. It has identified that, it has connected them nicely. Everything works beautifully. I'm just wondering, if there is a way for us to get rid of the awesome chocolates part and just get into the geo thing. I'm gonna go and edit the query. If someone knows what to do, let me know, because I don't really do this that much. So sometimes. All right, looks like there is nowhere it is parameterizing that. Okay, while I'm here, I'm just going to take out the thing and edit the names. We could have done this from the UI itself without jumping into Power Query by simply double clicking on the table and renaming it there. But it doesn't matter where you rename it. We have now kind of shortened the names. Otherwise, the names were looking quite clumsy and long. While we are there, let me look at some of the questions to understand, if there is anything that you are confused or not clear. Let me know. I'll be happy to help you with that. So I don't want to mispronounce this, but I want to say hung. If I use SQL Workbench, what can I connect to? You can connect to, it doesn't, if you're using SQL Workbench, I guess that sounds quite generic. What SQL is this? But whatever it is, whatever is the owner of the provider of the database, you will be able to connect to that. Yeah, try it out. And this is one question that I have seen a few people ask, not related to anything that we are doing here, but kind of comes up every now and then, which is, will this be available for me to watch later on YouTube or whatever? In all likelihood, yes. This is something that I don't make any promises on, but yeah, it should be on there, unless something terrible happens in the stream and then I feel like, oh, this is really bad quality, I don't want to put it out there, then I'll take it out. But yeah, it might be there. It would be there. And oh, sorry, this is Malik says, can you share the latest? Okay, this is not related at all. So it is asking you to install a connector there. It's possible that you may not have the connector installed if some custom installation is done and somebody unchecked that or whatever. So yeah, maybe install it. See if you search on internet with that exact message, you will find what else is required to install, and then install, because then you can hook it up. And Girish says, is there any restriction to store the number of records in Power BI while connecting to SQL tables? Technically, there is no restriction. Probably there is, we don't really know. Usually you can build very, very large data models and work with it. It just all boils down to how much your computer can handle, or maybe what is some of the internal variables they have used. But yeah, I personally, I haven't had any issues. I was able to hook up to very large data sets and use them to do analysis within Power BI. And I want to give a shout out to Imran for the super sticker there. Thanks, Imran. And Shivani keeps asking this question, even though it's kind of not related at all. This is what I mean. Please don't repeat your questions because it just completely derails. Says, what does lock and unlock mean in SQL? I mean, you can just search on the internet, but basically lock means lock, unlock means let go. So because sometimes when you're doing an operation on a database, you don't want others to come in and do something else while this data is being changed. So you lock a table, you finish your thing, and then you unlock. But there's probably more variations as well. So Paula says, do you need username, passwords, and other parameters to connect? They are required, but they're not stored into the connection. So if I see edit query here and then go to the source step, it's not going to show me what password it has used here. It simply says MySQL database, server name, database name, return a single database is true because we point to a single database. So it's saying keep only one database. So that's all there is. But the actual connection parameters are stored as part of your Power BI environment. So they're not exposed into the MySQL, Power Query code, but it is part of my Power BI settings. So it's stored somewhere. But I've shown you that bit as well. Like we need to enter something. Either you have to say what is the password and username and password, or you can also link it up to your Windows settings. So if you have got a database that you just connect with your Windows ID and then it just responds. Many organizations set it up like that. Then you can use that. So yeah, that's that. And Bartram sends a super sticker as well. Thank you, Bartram, for that. This is funny. I'm not gonna answer that. Prasanna says something. We will come back to some of these other questions at a later point. But the data is into Power BI. So that is step number 1 and 2 done. 1 is introduction to SQL. 2 is bring the data into Power BI. We got the data here. Now let's build something simple here so that we can see how this data can be analyzed into Power BI. And then we will figure out how to parameterize the queries. That is, right now what we are doing is we are not even writing any SQL. We just said data is here, go and get it. So all the data comes through. But sometimes you don't want all the data. You want to bring only latest sales, or you want to bring only shipments where more than 20 boxes of chocolate went out or something like that, or all the orders that are fulfilled or something like that. So whatever may be that query, we will need to write that query into the connection. So how do we do that? That is the after this. So whatever I'm going to do now, then that comes up. So here, let's just build a very simple sales report. One thing that I want to kind of add some extra information here rather than just make a bunch of things is we'll make the sales report look nice and good as well, so that it's easy on the eyes when it is presented. So I'm going to start by introducing some background. You can use one of the colors if you want, like this. In fact, this is something new, so not many would have noticed, but with February release of Power BI, they have actually added a few more color themes. These are called accessible themes, which is quite helpful, especially if you're building reports where you want to make sure that these reports are readable to audience who have some accessibility issues. So have you, any of you tried out these new themes? They look quite interesting, but also you can change the theme to quickly switch colors. I'm not going to use the color option. I'm going to use the image option here instead. What this does is it will get me here. Let me just quickly bring a background that I have. And bring a background so that there is a background on my report. That way the report kind of looks better rather than the white background. And then here what we want to do is we want to do a very simple sales report. So I want to build some measures, right click, new measure. Everything else from here onwards is exactly how we normally do it. So new measure, and then within here we're gonna say total sales is equal to sum of sales table amount column, and then so that measure is here. Now one more measure, this measure would be total boxes is equal to sum of boxes column in the thing. So we have got both of these. I'm noticing something funny when I look at what is being played. Do you see my mouse pointer all right when it is streamed? So let me know in the comments, because I think something funny is happening. Anyhow, so we got two measures. Okay, yeah, I think it's just my browser playing something funny. So we got total boxes and total sales, and then let's add one more measure, which is shipment count. Each row in the sales table is one shipment, so we just count rows of the shipments sales table, and we will get that. These are really simple measures, nothing complicated here. But if you want, you can add more complex measures as well. I'm going to introduce one extra measure just for the sake of adding a little bit of complexity, which is in Awesome Chocolates, we have a measure on how many shipments have a very low number of boxes. So for this, I think we can go back to here and then do a query. If I do a select star from sales, order by boxes, what order by does is it arranges the output in ascending or descending order, and then run this. So we can see that quite a few shipments have 0, 1 boxes, 3 boxes like that. The highest we would have done is, again, this data is only cut off at 500 rows, but at that point we have reached 34 boxes. So there's many times we send these sample chocolate where it's just a box of chocolate, because the customer is not really sure if this is the product that they or their shop would enjoy. So they'll ask, hey, send us 5 boxes of almond choco. We want to try it out. So we ship that out. But we want to keep a handle on such box low box shipments, because every shipment costs us some money, fixed amount of money. We don't want to waste too much money on this. So this is something that we would like to keep track of. So for example, what we want to do is we want to see select star from sales where boxes is less than 50. So these are all the shipments where we have less than 50 boxes go out. And then we want to see what proportion of our overall shipments are these kind of shipments. So we call these as low box shipments, and we want to see what is that proportion looking like. So we could build a DAX measure to do that. This is nothing but a kind of shipment count. So the shipment count counts everything. What the low box shipment tells us is it is a kind of shipment count, but it just counts the shipments where the number of boxes is under 50. And we could do this kind of thing with calculate. So low box shipments is equal to calculate shipment count. Sales boxes is less than 50. Notice that, this is kind of like SQL now. Here, the conditions that we write are the same conditions that we write in SQL. In SQL, you're showing the detail, but here you're doing an aggregation and telling you how much is the count. So we will have that. Finally, we could create another measure, the actual KPI for low box shipments. So we call this as LBS percentage is equal to divide low box shipments with all shipments, and then apply a percentage notation to this, so that comes up. So now that these things are there, we can kind of pop them into the screen. I'm gonna put one card here to kind of show you what the process is. Total sales, if I put that there, that comes up there. It looks just like a number, so I'm going to apply some currency formatting, and then that will look like that. So once this is done, I'm just going to apply some quick formatting to make sure that it looks nice, because we don't want to spend too much time building the report, but we'll do a little bit of formatting, so again you can kind of get familiar with some of the things that are available. So I'll go to the format, and from here change the font to the bold one. Let's make this 24 points. If it's too small, maybe let's just make it 26, and then yeah, that looks all right. And from effects, I'm gonna, because we have got a nice gradient background there, I want to make the actual card background itself 50% transparent, so that it kind of blends into my output there. And if you want, you can add some additional effects as well, like I can add a shadow effect or visual border and whatnot. I'm not going to bother with any of those, but that's that. So once that is there, I can copy paste these for each of our metrics. So this one would be total boxes, and again total boxes, I'll make it a whole number, and then this one will be shipment count, which will be a whole number, and then this is going to be LBS percentage. So this is my overall information for all the sales that we have pulled through. And then here we could show some additional graphs or visuals to break this down by, for example, geography or salesperson or product or category or something like that. So let's make a visual here that tells us what's happening by our geographies. We operate in 6 geographies. So again, we could use one of these visuals to tell that story. I'm going to use a, let's go with the bar chart. And let's make it this big. And here in this bar chart, we're going to put the geo onto y-axis. So one geography per here. And then let's just see what's the total sales looking like. So this is how it looks. It looks nice and clear. And then, you know, if you want, you can add some additional detailing here based on what you want to say. I'm just trying to make up my mind how much we need to do in this. And then we'll copy paste this. And here, in this, I want to show this overall sales trend as well. We haven't got a calendar table or anything here. Again, we could either use SQL to make it, or you could use Power Query to generate it, or you can bring it from some other source and merge them together. But I'm just going to be lazy, and I'll turn this into a line graph and use the sales date to do this, and then take out that, and you know that's the sales trend. It kind of looks at too much noise, so I'm going to take out the day level and quarter, so we look at the monthly sales trend. So this is my total sales trend, and that is how it gets broken by geography. Let's apply the same kind of formatting principles on these guys. You can spend a lot of time formatting them, but what I will do is I'll do some quick adjustments, starting off by so x-axis doesn't have a title anymore. Y-axis, I'll take out the title on that, and then line itself, let's just that we go here, effects 50% transparent. Now I see that with our orange color background, the blue color may not be the best one. So I'm gonna go and search for color, and that looks better. Marker, and looks bad. Almost looks like Christmas colors there. I wonder how we revert this to what it was. Okay, let's just go with that. And then this, I want to go and again do 50% and change the colors. One good idea that you can take and apply for any reporting that you do in Power BI is if you're using a color, like for example, total sales here is in the black color, then it's a good idea to stick with that same color throughout your report, so that people, when they see black, they associate that with total sales. I'm not saying black alone, you can apply the same concept, but with blue as well. So pick a color and then use the same color for the same measure wherever it is reported, so that you don't have to over legend your report and still get the same thing. So because we went with black, I'm going to go here and apply the black color. It might look too strong. That kind of looks like, so I'm just going to tone it down a bit and kind of go with that. But if you think this looks too much like a monochrome thing, you can try out different colors. But some of the other easy wins are the titles themselves. The default title Power BI puts is kind of clumsy. So I'm just gonna type my own title, or you can generate the title through conditional formatting as well. This goes a little bit too much, so I'm just gonna type the title here. We'll just say sales trend. And again, synchronize these fonts. Let's go with semi bold. and all right, so this looks kind of decent, not the greatest, but at least it kind of tells me what's happening. And here we could make another something that tells me something else. We'll keep it quick and simple with a table visual that shows us who our top 10 people are. So here I can bring my people, salesperson goes into the columns, and then total sales, total boxes, LBS percentage, and then quickly get rid of the total rows, go to grid and options, and let's just change the row padding to 3 pixels, and then make this maybe 12 so that it's readable. And then once these are done, we can kind of clean it up a little bit more. For example, again, same ideas as earlier, make it 50% transparent. But it's not enough that you do it, you have to do the colors as well. So just gonna expand everything. And then from here, okay, I think that looks enough. Let's take out the background altogether. And finally, we'll go here and then say where salesperson is all. We can set this to top and top 10 salespeople by total sales, apply, so that this comes up here. I think at this point you can kind of make the thing more spaced out. That looks all right. We could probably polish it even more, but let's just call it a day there. And we have got this nice report. Let's slap a title on the top. And sales report for awesome chocolates. Okay, so we got a report, nothing too fancy, but at the same time, nothing too simple either. You can interact, you can see what's going on, you can get into a specific month, look at all the patterns and whatnot. Now that we have all done this, you think, oh, this is good, I'm going to save this, and then email this to our boss. Just as you are about to go and share this file with your boss, she comes up and then says, oh, this looks good, can you make this, but just for our bars category of products, or a specific product. Like, we got all these products. I'll show you what products we have. We have all of these products here. Let me just take out my face, and so we have all of these products. Let's say she wants to know how that report would look like for eclairs. Okay, so that exact report just for eclairs. You'll be like, oh man, I just spent the whole afternoon building this. Now I have to create the whole thing again. Well, you don't have to, because the data is coming through my SQL. We could kind of change the query and then build a new query that gives me just the eclairs data. So let's see how we could kind of change that and build it all out. So remember when we were connecting to this data, so we said get data and then MySQL. We just use it server and database, but there is an advanced option. When you expand, you can actually write a query here. Okay, we didn't write the query, but we could have written a query. So all we need to do is write a query that will give me the data for eclairs. So for example, I could say localhost, I think that's the port number. Yeah. And then select star from sales where PID, okay, let's just use PID directly. So we could also write a join and do all of that, but I'll be lazy here. And then let's use P04. So if I write a query there, I'm going to get all the data that corresponds to just P04. You can see from here, this is the only data that I'm getting. None of the other products data comes through. So I could potentially load this. I'm just going to load it anyway. It's not necessary, this data, and it will complicate the data model as well, because now the P0 that query needs to be connected and all of that. But you can see that the query one is now in my system here. But what we want is, we don't want to hard code anything, because in that query, if I edit it, you'll see that the source step here has the query, but it also has the hard-coded product value P04. So we don't want to do anything like that. Instead, what we would like to do is parameterize it, so that if our boss changes the mind, we can quickly change this and produce the report for something else. So that is our next mission in this challenge. So how to parameterize this? There are a bunch of fun ways to parameterize things within Power BI. Before I do that, I'm just going to see if there is any questions or anything that I missed out, because I feel like I haven't looked at this screen. Let's see, read what Girish says. Girish says, can I store the SQL tables in one Power BI report and second Power BI report to connect to these tables? The idea is to store visuals and SQL tables in two different reports. Not really sure what your end goal is, but what you could do is you could create a data set. So you can generate a Power BI data set that contains all your necessary data, queries, and model and everything, and then publish that data set, and then you can then use the same data set from multiple reports. So that will give you a better control, because what the data set holds is, it holds the necessary query logic, all of that, and it is centralized. So then not only you, but anybody else in the organization can also subscribe to this data set and build reports on top. So that is one option. If anyone else has a better idea or something, feel free to share. Saurav says, any change in the SQL DB, I'm assuming that that data will be refreshed in Power BI. It kind of is. So if my SQL changes, I just have to trigger a refresh from Power BI, either manually or schedule it. So every night it refreshes or something, and the reports will be updated. Omoto Milola sends in a super sticker as well. Thank you so much for that. And Marcos says, awesome. Thanks, Sensei Chandu. Your contribution to the community are very much appreciated. Thank you so much. I'm really glad you enjoy it. And and he asks, why are you doing this? Why don't we use a page or report filter? We could, but the whole idea is to introduce you to the concept that we can parameterize the queries. That way, what happens is if I put a page or a report filter, the data still has to come to Power BI. So we are unnecessarily fetching the data that we no longer need. So it is to avoid bringing anything here so that you can speed up things here. So it's a good idea to take only what you need, not anything extra, and put it through Power Query, Power Pivot, and all of those additional layers, simply because that just slows down the whole thing. I mean, it's fairly optimized, but it's a good practice to not take any excess data than you need so that it is minimized all through the network. So yeah, and good thing to learn as well. Vishnu says, how do you actually pick the visualizations from group of visualizations pane? Okay, so this is a different thing altogether. I talk about this in other videos too, so I'm not going to go into that. But I will probably have a separate video on this topic of how do we pick the visualizations in a future video. Paula says, if you share this with your boss, won't she need the connection? Of course she needs the connection. Here, this is like a made up scenario. So everybody is on my computer, but in your world, you wouldn't be connecting to localhost to begin with. You will connect to a database, and the database would be reachable by your boss as well. So you don't need to worry about the connection issues. All right, so those are the comments, but if you do have anything else, feel free to put that. And so here, going back to where we were before I started looking at the comments is, how do we now make this a parametric thing? So you can build parameters in any number of fun ways. I'll show you kind of like the semi-easy option. It's not the easiest, but it's also not the hardest, which is within Power Query itself, you can create a parameter. So here I have got parameter options in the home screen of Power Query, manage parameters, and we could use this to bring in arbitrary parameters like product code or client number or invoice IDs or whatever, and then use them in our transformations. So I'm going to click on this and make a new parameter. This will be product code, and then set the current value to P04. Okay, so the parameter name is product code. Notice that there is a space and everything in there, and then add that. So here it will add to your queries panel product code. It kind of looks different to this this has a separate kind of a logo compared to the table logo that we have here. And what we want to now do is use this parameter as part of the query that we are building. So query 1 has P04 hard coded. Where it says it is hard coded, we would like to bring the product code into that. At this point, you do require the Power Query formula bar. If you don't have the formula bar, then it kind of becomes hard to do this. So to enable this, you need to go to the view ribbon of Power Query and then check the formula bar option here. So this is a one-time thing. You do it and then it will be part of your Power BI. Every time you get into Power Query, you will see the formula bar. So once you have the formula bar and once you have got a parameter that is set to P04, you can go to the editor here and then from here where it is hard coded to P04, I'm just gonna take out that and then leave the two single quotes, two double quotes, ampersand, ampersand, and bring the parameter into the middle. So the parameter is product code. If you type hash, it will give you the parameter. You don't need to type hash if there is no space in the parameter name. So if it is just called PID, you can directly type it, it will work. But because there is a space, I'm just going to use hash product code like that. So I'll just expand this whole thing out so we can kind of read this. That's how my query now becomes. So it is saying select star from sales, hashtag LF, which is next line, where PID single quote is my parameter, and then close that. So at this point, what you're doing, if you pay careful attention, is you're taking a value from your Power Query and then you are passing it to the MySQL or any other SQL server there. So this is called crossing the privacy borders. So imagine, back in COVID times, governments and local authorities had this word called bubble. Stay in your bubble. So your bubble is you, your wife, your kids, your family. That is your bubble. Your neighbor's bubble is their family. So you don't mix the bubbles. So think of this like a bubble. MySQL tables, through the connection that you're making, are all in one bubble. They can talk to themselves. It's all fine. Your local Excel files are in one bubble. Your text files are in one bubble. Your internet connections are in one bubble. But anytime you go from one place to another, like the parameter is in its own bubble, MySQL is in its own bubble, you're taking the parameter from here and going there. Power Query doesn't like this. So it will give you a privacy warning saying, you're crossing the threshold of this and going there. And you can bypass that. You can say, yeah, I know what I'm doing. Let me do this. And then it will work. Once you say, I know what I'm doing, Power Query will not nag you about this again. So I have already said yes to this yesterday when I was testing this out. So today I'm not going to get a warning message. I'll simply, it will take and it will work. But if it is the first time you're doing, you will see a privacy warning message pop on the screen. You just enable the thing and then it will work. So now it worked. It kind of shows me P04. Let's test this out by changing to P05 and then come back here. Again, permission is required, so I'll edit the permission. I think it's because I deleted that, the connection settings. So now it shows for P05. Let's see what happens. P06 and every time it is asking. This is interesting behavior. Anyhow, it will give you for whatever product that you set up. I suppose we could kind of avoid those kind of questions altogether. So once this query is set up, I'm going to copy this whole query, that entire step code, and go to my sales table and go to the source step, source and navigation. These two steps. Navigation takes me to the thing. Instead, I'll delete this and then here I'll put that line, entire line. So this sales table is now whatever the parameter says. P06 is what I'm getting, and then close and apply, and then I'll get a limited report just for P06. Anytime my boss says, oh, I don't want P06, I want P17, all I have to do is go to the Power Query and change this parameter to P07. Close and apply and run these things, and then it will run it here. So this is one option. You could, if you don't like the parameter route, you can set up a list of where clause variables in a spreadsheet or a text file, or you could even have the query in somewhere and then bring that query as a whole thing and then combine that. but it will run that. So this is the crucial bit that happens in the background. Let's see if there is any. So Bit2J says, how can we put a measure on our canvas that says data refreshed on DMM It should be the date when the data gets refreshed. You can do that. We'll probably come back to this later if possible. Can you make... and Rashid says, can we pass value from Power BI report? So this is a question that I was anticipating. I'm not gonna lie. When I was thinking like, okay, this is the presentation that I'll do, I thought, okay, what are some of the questions that people are gonna ask? And this is one question. And I have a funny joke as well as an answer. You can do it, there's solutions where you can click a button here on the screen and then it'll go and circle back and then come back and do some weird stuff. But imagine you're getting dressed for work. You put on your underpants and then you wear your trousers on top. But what we try to do when we try to say, can I take something on the Power BI screen and then push it back to the query layer is similar to saying, can I wear my pants and then wear somehow underpants inside? You might succeed, but it's very hard and it's not necessary. It's same thing like that. So the bottom line here is you need to do things in the order they're supposed to happen so that everything works smoothly and you don't end up doing a lot of extra work. So any queries that you're writing, you need to think about them first and then build the query, then build the report. Once the report is done, if you have a change of mind, good place to do that would be go back and change the query. Not like we'll make this report like this and somehow figure out another way to go to the report. I mean, I understand that sometimes you want it, but it's a good idea to not get into that temptation of putting underpants after you wear your pants. All right. And then Saurav says, can I also display P07, P04 on the title dynamically? This is an awesome question. So, and we can do this because the information is available to us one way or another. Again, there's lots of different ways to do this. I'll show you the easiest way, which is we know that within the sales table, the only product that is available is P04. No other products are available, just P04. So if I go to the sales table, right click and write a new measure, and then write a measure that somehow gets me the P04, then that would be the answer. So this is, we can call this as selected product. And you can use anything. For example, if you say first non-blank value, and here say sales PID, that's going to give you a measure. It's a two argument per node. Oh, something else is expected. What is this? And then put that there. Ooh, that's incorrect. I think I wrote the wrong calculation there. I need to sometime. I have not used this in a long time. Hence, there is non-negative that is evaluated for the column. Oh, okay. Let's just try the selected value then. I don't know if this is gonna actually work because there's multiple, but PID. Yeah. So selected value of sales table PID column, because technically there's other products, but because through query we have limited, it will only have P07. It will come up with that as the name, and this is sitting in a measure called selected product. So now what I want is I want the sales report for awesome chocolates for, and then P07 there in the title. So where it says for, after the for, you can space, and then when you are editing the text boxes, you have an option, like when you're editing, you have an option to add values. So here is a plus value button. It is grayed out, so it looks like you can't do it, but it is there. So when you click on this, you can actually either ask a question or bring in model variables that you model calculations that you have. So here I'm going to say selected product. This it's not popping up, so come on. Yeah, finally. So selected product, that is the measure name that we have generated, and then save this, and it comes up, it's text value, so you can apply the same rules of formatting that you have done. And for example, I'm going to make that bold. So that will be the title, sales report for awesome chocolates for P07. It's fully integrated, so if you change your parameter, let's go and change this to P11, and then run this, it will have that. A better thing would be, rather than P11 or P7, to give a product name. I leave that to you as your homework. Everything is there, so you just have to change the query so it works like a join query. Remember the query that I showed earlier where we did the sales for Canada? Same thing, but instead of Canada, it will be the name of the product, and the table will be different. Motivation says, Dear Chand, do you offer any courses precisely Power BI developer? I do have a course for Power BI developers, which is exactly like report building, data analysis, understanding Power Query, Power Pivot, storytelling, and all of those things. So it's called Power BI course, not confusing name. And if you go to my website, you'll see that the course is there. So feel free to check that out and sign up if interested. So yeah, that is it for the presentation. I hope you enjoyed the journey of going from SQL to Power BI to creating a report and then making it parameterized and customizable and all of that. And I hope you learned something new. It was fun sharing this all with you all. I'll now move on to the Q&A part. So if you have got questions, feel free to put them there. I'll answer them as much as possible. But yeah, if you are here for the main show, that's it. This is done. Yeah, if you've got a busy day ahead, or you need to go back and finish your hot water, or go back and catch some sleep, good night or good evening or good afternoon to you all. Hey, one more super sticker from Omoto Milola. Thank you so much for that lovely gesture. And Bit2 says, do you also have SQL learning courses from scratch? If yes, please share a link so that I can sign up. Unfortunately not. This is something that I'm thinking, like, maybe it'll be fun to teach a little bit of SQL. I don't consider myself an expert in SQL, but I do know my way around it, and I am, yeah, I'm not like great or anything, but if you give me any database and explain what is there, I can write queries without getting confused. So maybe I could make a course, but if you are, yeah, if you, that will probably be like many months. So if you are in a hurry, check out the download link. This is the link where you could download the sample file. There is a 1 hour video on my YouTube channel called SQL Full Course. So watch that. It's a free video. Practice queries are there. Homework problems are also there. And then if you still want more, check out my course recommendations here and sign up for one of those courses. Keegan says, how do I parameterize dates? You can, the thing with dates and other stuff is it will get a little bit tricky to follow the convention. So I'll show you the steps required. Okay, let's say here I want to limit the sales that happened within let's say January of 2022. So select star from sales where sale date is greater than or equal to, and then you can see the date format is year, month, day. So 2021 0101 and sale date is less than or equal to less than 2021 0201. Let's try this, because it's always a tricky thing to write queries by hand and then run them, because sometimes you may get the syntax wrong or the dates wrong or whatever. But yeah, it seems to have worked. We can see all the January data here coming in nicely. So only those dates are coming. So now that we have to parameterize the dates, what we need is you need 2 edge points, or you need a parameter that tells the month name and year, month and year combination. So Jan 2021 is the parameter. But the problem is, if I have got a parameter that simply says Jan 2021, I need to then turn that into a format that MySQL or whatever SQL you are using can understand. The format that usually SQL understands is year, date, month format. Whereas if I go to Power Query here and transform and then create a parameter, so we'll make a new parameter. This is called my report. We'll just call this as start date, and the type would be date, and I'm going to type a value here. We'll see what happens. So 1 Jan 2021. Okay, so you can see the current value is formatted as 1/1/2021. So when I try to take this parameter and now make it part of my SQL, I'm going to have some issues, mainly because one, this is a date data type, not text value, whereas product code is a text value. And Power Query is a strongly typed language. What it means is it likes to have data types for everything, and one data type cannot easily go into another data type unless you convert it. So in order for me to parameterize that and bring the date here, I need to take that date and then convert that into a text format that is correct for my situation. So this is where you need to learn a little bit more about the way M language works and all of that. But for example here, where PID, so I'm gonna take out those bits, where sale date greater than or equal to, and then bring in that date. So and then here like that, and one more ampersand. I'll zoom this bit later once I finish typing, because it can be a little tricky to do both in one go. So sale date greater than or equal to, and then single quote, and here I have got my start date, but I can't just use the start date, so I need to use text from start date, and then see that edit permission, and you can see that when I do text from, the format that Power Query converts is 1/1/2021. Now we can kind of wing it and see if MySQL is happy to run this. But if it comes back and complains that this is not the format that I'm expecting, then you need to turn this into the right format before you could actually run this. So here, this is the error that I'm now getting. Incorrect date time format, because it was expecting 2021 1/1 format, whereas this is what we have given. So you'll need to turn the start date into a date format that is correct for what is readable by MySQL. It can be a little tricky to do all of that with direct M coding. So what you could do is you can make a new blank query, initiate this with start date, so it comes up here, and then from there make it a table and convert this to, this gets a little bit too technical, so if you're bored or tuning out, that is all fine. But yeah, so you have this, and then once this is there, it's as a date, I can then kind of add columns for these. So one is year, one is month, and another is day, so that I have these three, and then I can take these three and then introduce a final column which will merge everything with the custom separator of hyphen, and then yeah, we'll just call this as merged. So we'll end up with the merged date, this is that, and then right click and then say remove other columns, and then right click on this and then say drill down, so that we have a new query which is equal to exactly what we want. So then say report date as the query name, go back to the query, and instead of start date, use report date, and then run that, and boom, you get your answer. So it's like jumping through the hoops, but that's because of the data type conversion issues. There is probably other ways, better ways to do this, but you can take your parameters and then bring that. So here we are only checking greater than. If you have got another end date, you can use less than and bring everything together. Hopefully that was helpful. Hank says, I have an error occurred during the pre-login handshake. I'm not really sure. Maybe something else is going on. I never had that error, but probably search and you'll have the answer. Hopefully it's resolved by now, because that was like 8 minutes ago. Shiva says, can we use stored procedures or temporary tables? You could do all. I have not done the stored procedure route or something else, but you can definitely try. You can, if you have got a view built as well in your database that gives you what you want, like especially you might have a view that tells you latest sales data. So last 30 days sales will be a view, and it gets updated every now and then or whatever. You can directly query the view rather than raw tables like the way I have done. So whatever works for you. And then bit 2 says, can you address this one? So this is a good one. It's just, I feel like it's not going to be foolproof. I'll probably need to research a bit more, but I'll show you how I would do it. I'll be very careful to over rely on this simply because sometimes a part of this changes and other doesn't change. Again, doesn't make sense in abstract. So I'll show you what I mean by this. So we want to have a last refresh date shown on the Power BI report, but it should only update if and when we refresh. So here what we could do is we could create a new query, blank query, and then start this with date time local now, or you could also do a UTC now if you're doing it on the server. The problem with Power Query times and when it goes to the service or platform and all of that is local now will be my computer's time, but once I publish, it will be the local of the Power BI server, whichever locale it sits. So it can get a little bit complicated. So you need to be quite careful with this. So I'll get the correct time here, and then I'm gonna, we can't really do it this with dates because then you'll have to wait until tomorrow to see what happens. So I'm gonna leave it with the date and time, and I'll turn this into a table, transform, change type to date time, so that we'll get this, and then say refresh date. So we have now a table within our model that says refresh date. I'm gonna right click on the report date thing and then uncheck enable load for that. So we don't want that thing go there. This one needs to go. Close and apply, and refresh date table comes into my data model here. It is a refresh date is a single row table that just has the date and time calculated within Power Query. And technically, this thing should only be calculated whenever you refresh. But I say technically simply because what I could do within Power BI is I could selectively refresh only the refresh date table and not look at other tables. So I can right click on this and then say refresh. This is only going to refresh this guy, but not the other tables. So then what happens is the refresh date is changing, but none of my other tables are. So it's very hard to get it correct, but it kind of works in a way. So once this date is there, you can then write a measure. Sorry, I didn't mean to click that. You can write a measure which is last refreshed on is equal to selected value of refresh date. This table will ever have only one row, so it'll just work this measure, and then once that is there, we can just put it a card, add that there, and put it at the bottom of our report. And then that will be what it says, 642.03. So now it's already 6:43 on my computer. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna where is the refresh thing, and it'll be 6:43.56. Ooh, I didn't realize your comment was sitting on top. So yeah, 6:43.56 is what it will say. This is pretty much where every time you refresh all, this will change. But like I said, I can only refresh that table. So I could technically keep updating this data even though none of my other things have changed. So it is not foolproof, but it kind of works. Nobody ever does that kind of a thing. So if you build a process around it, it should be fine. All right. Ramesh says, awesome session. Thank you, Ramesh. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I had fun as well. And Adam Saxton is here. Hey, Adam, how are you? And Arjun says, how about creating views within MySQL and connect it to Power BI engine to display graphs that we want instead of using DAX? Because not everyone would be comfortable using DAX. That's a good question. You can build the view that gives you the summarized data, and then bring that and create the visuals. It might actually be faster than doing all the work within Power BI anyway. Depends on what that work is and how big your data is and all of that. So yeah, try it. If it works, you're comfortable with SQL, you can build that. If you are comfortable with something else, let's say Python or R or whatever else, you could use those visuals as well to do the data analysis for you. You don't have to use DAX. And even if you don't like DAX or you feel like DAX is hard, Power BI offers other ways to build that. So you could use the quick measure option here, and Power BI now has a Q&A kind of a feature where you can talk to DAX, ask what you want, and it will build the measures for you. And it's not that hard. I mean, if you learned SQL and you're able to master it, then you already have that learning gene. You can figure it out. So you can now that you already know SQL, you don't need to learn more of it. You can go and learn DAX. So lots of different ways, whatever works for you. Jackie says, thanks for the tutorial. How can you keep your Power BI dynamic enough to make requested changes, but it will not include backdated information, such as a salesperson adds past sales after close? It's very specific, but you could probably build some logic to figure out what you're trying to do. I'm not really sure if that is helpful, but yeah, you could use Power Query to limit what data you're fetching. You could use SQL like what I have shown. You could modify your DAX so that it doesn't pay attention to changes past a date or whatever, and then do all of that. And of course, Adam chips in with hybrid tables. You could catch archived data and then near real time for the current data or flip it. So yeah, that is a brilliant solution as well. Parlok says, thanks for this. I have an Excel formula question unrelated to this. Where can I ask? Probably Stack Overflow, Mr. Excel forum, my forum. Lots of places where you can post such questions. And yeah, hopefully you'll get some help there. Sirisha says, can you share any resources to learn R from scratch, please? It's been many years since I learned R and used it. It's been many years that I could even confidently say I forgot R. I can't even write an R script suddenly. I'll have to brush up a lot of concepts. But I read a book called R for Data Science. It's by, I can't read the names of the authors from here. It's on the bookshelf there. But yeah, probably get the book or watch some tutorials on YouTube. The R creators have, like, it's a very open source community. So there's like hundreds of, probably thousands or even more websites and resources and free books and courses and all sorts of stuff available online. And if you have done any programming, R would probably be easier to just pick up and continue writing code. So yeah, good luck. Ramakrishna asked a question, which is how to track if someone made changes to your report, and Adam gives the answer. So even I didn't know this, so I'm going to see what For desktop files, if it's in SharePoint library, you can see history there. For the service, the audit log is where you can see it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And if the file is in your computer and somebody is changing it without you knowing it, then you have a problem, my friend. But in all other cases, if it's shared, then you can see the history like add-on points. All right, I feel like we have reached a natural point where we've seen what we could do with SQL and Power BI. And like I said, I hope you all enjoyed this. It was fun talking to you all and sharing some of these ideas. Do feel free to put more questions in the comments below once the thing is over, like using the chat feature or the comment feature on the replay mode. And download the SQL database and practice this. I'll try to post a copy of this file, but I don't think this will work when you download, because it will require the MySQL connection and all of that. So maybe not the file, but the database is there and you can practice it. Thanks again. And remember, I do a live stream on the last Friday of every month. So next month, I'll come back again with some other topic. If you have got any suggestions for a topic, put them in the comments so that I can consider them when I plan for my live streams. And yeah, as always, stay awesome. Thank you.